Lena had never felt so scared in her life. She stood on the edge of the large, empty field, watching as the ships of her people took off into the sky, leaving her behind. The ground shook under her feet from the force of the engines, but her heart was shaking more. They had left her, just like that, without even looking back. Her legs wobbled, and she fell to her knees. The wind from the departing ships blew dust into her face, but she was too shocked to care. Lena's people had been running from an enemy, the dangerous enemy that had attacked their planet without warning. Everyone had rushed to the ships to escape. In the chaos, they had forgotten her. Or maybe they hadn't forgotten. Maybe they thought she was too weak to make it, too weak to survive the journey. After all, she had always been smaller and slower than the others. The thought made her chest tighten with sadness. She was all alone now, on this strange and empty planet, with no one to help her. Lena tried to stand up, but her body felt too heavy. The fear was making her limbs weak. She looked around, hoping to see something, anything familiar, but all she saw were the tall, strange trees and the vast fields of alien grass that stretched far into the horizon. The sky above was a dull, pale color, and the sun hung low, casting long shadows. Is this how it ends? She whispered to herself, her voice shaky. She remembered the stories her people told about this planet. It was said to be dangerous, filled with strange creatures, but none were as terrifying as the humans. Humans were known across the galaxy as carnivores. The stories told of how humans ate the flesh of their enemies, how they were ruthless and unforgiving. Lena's parents had warned her many times to stay far away from humans. They were monsters. Now she was stuck here, alone. And if the stories were true, the humans would find her soon. The thought made her stomach twist in fear. Lena looked at the horizon, wondering how far she could run. Her legs were tired, and her mind was filled with panic. Running might not even help. If the humans were as fierce as the stories claimed, she wouldn't stand a chance. The planet was so quiet, too quiet. The wind rustled the leaves of the trees, but there were no animals, no signs of life. Lena felt a chill run down her spine. She wrapped her arms around herself, trying to stay calm, but it was no use. The fear was growing inside her like a storm. She needed shelter, someplace to hide. If she stayed out in the open like this, she would be easy to find. Slowly, Lena forced herself to stand up again, even though her legs felt weak. Her body screamed for rest, but her mind told her she needed to move. Step by step, she walked towards a cluster of trees in the distance. The tall trees had thick, twisted branches, and their leaves looked almost like giant, dark feathers. Maybe she could hide there for a while, just until she figured out what to do. As she walked, her mind kept returning to the humans. Were they really as bad as the stories said? She had never seen one before, but the rumors were enough to make her heart race. What would they do to her if they found her? Would they eat her like the stories claimed? She shook her head, trying to push the terrifying thoughts away, but they clung to her like shadows. After what felt like hours, she reached the trees. The shadows here were thick, and it was cooler under the branches. Lena found a spot between the roots of a large tree and sat down. Her whole body was trembling, and she hugged her knees to her chest, trying to make herself as small as possible. The silence around her felt heavy, like it was pressing down on her from all sides. She didn't know how long she could stay here, hiding in the shadows, but she didn't have a choice. There was no one left to help her. Her people were gone, and she was completely alone. Tears filled her eyes as the weight of her situation hit her fully. She was stranded on a planet where humans, the terrifying, flesh-eating humans, might find her at any moment. She had no idea how long she could survive, but one thing was certain: she had to stay hidden. If the humans were real, if they found her, she didn't want to think about what would happen next. Lena buried her face in her knees and whispered to herself, "Please don't let them find me." The human landing. Lena woke to the sound of something loud and heavy in the sky. Her heart raced as she looked up through the thick branches of the tree she was hiding under. The noise grew louder, rumbling like thunder, but there were no clouds in the sky. It wasn't a storm. It was something else. Something much worse. A ship. Lina's eyes widened with fear. Could it be the humans? The stories she had heard flashed through her mind again. Humans were dangerous. Humans were flesh-eaters. If they found her, they would capture her, and she would never escape. She peeked through the leaves, her heart pounding in her chest. The ship was large, dark, and smooth, hovering above the ground as it descended slowly. Its engines roared, sending gusts of wind through the trees, causing the branches to sway and leaves to scatter. Lina ducked down, trying to make herself as small and invisible as possible. The ship landed with a heavy thud, sending vibrations through the ground. Lina pressed her back against the thick tree trunk, praying they wouldn't see her. She could hear the soft whir of the ship's engines as they powered down, followed by the sharp hiss of air being released. Moments later, the doors of the ship opened with a loud clank. Lina bit her lip to keep from gasping out loud. She could hear footsteps, heavy boots on the ground. Her breath hitched. This was it. The humans were here. She dared to take a small peek again. From the shadows of the trees, she saw them. There were 4 of them, tall and strong, wearing strange suits that covered their bodies from head to toe. Their faces were hidden behind helmets, but she could tell from their size and shape that these were humans. No doubt about it. They were looking around, scanning the area, as if searching for something. Lina's heart felt like it was about to burst out of her chest. Were they looking for her? Did they know she was here? The leader of the group, a man taller than the others, raised his arm and pointed at something. His voice, deep and commanding, echoed through the forest, though Lina couldn't understand the language he was speaking. The other humans nodded and began moving in different directions, checking the trees and scanning the ground with strange devices. Lina hugged her knees tighter, pressing her back against the tree. She couldn't let them find her. Not now. Not ever. The humans were getting closer, their footsteps crunching the leaves and twigs beneath them. One of them, a woman with a device in her hand, seemed to be scanning the ground near Lina's hiding spot. Lina held her breath, afraid even the smallest sound would give her away. The woman stopped just a few feet from her hiding spot. Lina could see her boots clearly now, the dark material looking strong and ready for battle. The device in the woman's hand beeped softly, and Lina's heart skipped a beat. Did it detect her? Was she about to be caught? But then the woman turned away, walking back toward the others. Lina exhaled softly, relief washing over her. They hadn't found her. At least, not yet. The humans gathered together, talking among themselves. Lina couldn't understand their words, but from their movements, it looked like they were discussing something important. The leader pointed toward the distance, and the others nodded in agreement. Then they split up again, heading in different directions, as if searching for something else. Lina's mind raced. Should she run? Should she stay hidden? Her body screamed for her to move, but her legs felt frozen in place. She was too scared to make a sound, too scared to breathe. The humans were moving farther away, but she knew they could come back at any moment. Suddenly, the leader stopped. He turned around, looking directly at the tree where Lina was hiding. Her blood ran cold. Had he seen her? For a moment, their eyes met. At least, she thought so, though his helmet covered his face. Lina's body went stiff with fear, her heart pounding so loudly she was sure he could hear it. She pressed herself against the tree, trying to disappear into the shadows. The human took a step toward her. Lina panicked. Her instincts screamed at her to run, but she couldn't move. The human was getting closer, his boots crunching the ground with every step. Then, without warning, the human raised his hand. Lina squeezed her eyes shut, bracing herself for what was to come. She could almost feel his presence right in front of her, ready to grab her and drag her away. But nothing happened. Lina slowly opened her eyes. The human was pointing at something above her, on the tree. She followed his gaze and saw a small fruit hanging from one of the branches. It looked strange, with bright colors and an odd shape. The human reached up, plucked the fruit, and examined it. He said something into his communicator and then walked away, leaving Lina frozen in place. She watched in disbelief as the humans moved farther into the forest, their attention now focused on the strange plants and trees around them. They hadn't come for her. They didn't even know she was there. But for how long? Lina didn't wait to find out. As soon as the humans were far enough away, she crawled deeper into the shadows, her heart still racing. She had to stay hidden. If they found her, there would be no escape. Found by a human. Lina's heart had barely calmed from the human's arrival when she heard something again. A rustling sound. Closer this time, like someone or something moving through the bushes. She froze, every muscle in her body tensing up. Her instincts screamed for her to stay still, to not make a sound. But the noise grew louder. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate. It was a human. Lina could feel it in her bones. They had found her. Her mind raced with fear, thinking of all the terrible things the stories had said about humans. They were known as carnivores, creatures who ate their prey alive. She had to run, but her legs felt like they were made of stone. Through the thick bushes, she saw him. One human, tall and muscular, stepping carefully as he looked around. His face was no longer covered by the helmet. He had removed it, revealing sharp, focused eyes. His dark hair was cut short, and his jaw was strong, giving him a look of quiet determination. He wasn't like the monsters from the stories. He looked almost normal. But that didn't matter. He was still dangerous. Lina ducked behind the tree, holding her breath. She prayed that he would pass by without noticing her, but the human was coming closer. Too close. She could hear the soft crunch of his boots on the dry leaves and the low hum of the strange device he carried in his hand. She pressed herself against the tree, hoping the shadows would hide her, but it was no use. The human stopped right in front of her hiding place. Lina's heart pounded in her chest, so loud she was sure he could hear it. And then he spoke. "Hey, is someone there?" His voice was deep, but not threatening. It had a strange warmth to it, as if he wasn't looking for a fight. Lina didn't move, too scared to answer. "I know you're here," the human said, his voice a little softer now. "I won't hurt you. Just come out." Lina's body was trembling. She didn't know what to do. The stories always said that humans couldn't be trusted, but the tone of his voice, it didn't sound like the voice of a monster. Still, she couldn't take any chances. She stayed silent, hoping he would leave. The human sighed. He took a step forward and leaned down, looking directly at her. His eyes softened when he saw her curled up in the shadows. "There you are," he said, his voice quiet, almost gentle. "I won't hurt you. I promise." Lina's fear was overwhelming. She tried to back away, but there was nowhere to go. Her eyes darted around, looking for an escape, but the human was too close now. She was trapped. The human noticed her panic and took a step back, giving her space. He raised his hands, showing that he wasn't carrying any weapons. "It's okay," he said slowly. "I'm not here to hurt you. I'm just trying to help." Lina didn't understand. Why would a human want to help her? Weren't they supposed to be the enemies of her people? Weren't they supposed to be cruel and vicious? Seeing her confusion, the human knelt down, making himself smaller. "My name is Marcus," he said, pointing to himself. "What's your name?" Lina hesitated. Should she tell him? Would it make a difference? She didn't know what to do, but something in Marcus's eyes seemed different. He didn't look like the terrifying flesh-eater from the stories. He looked almost kind. "Lina," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Marcus smiled gently. "Lina, that's a nice name." He didn't move closer, respecting the space between them. "Look, I know you're scared. I would be too if I was in your place, but I'm not going to hurt you. I just want to help." Lina looked into his eyes, searching for any sign of danger. but all she saw was sincerity. He didn't look like someone who would harm her. But still, she couldn't forget the stories. What if this was a trick? I don't trust humans, Lina said, her voice shaky. Marcus nodded, understanding. I get that. I know humans don't have the best reputation. But not all of us are bad. Some of us just want to survive, like you. Lina didn't know what to believe. Her whole life, she had been told that humans were the enemy, that they would destroy anyone who crossed their path. But here was one, right in front of her, offering help instead of harm. She glanced at his hands again, empty, no weapons. His posture was relaxed, not threatening. Maybe, just maybe, this human wasn't like the others. Why are you here? Lina asked, her voice trembling. Marcus looked up at the sky for a moment, then back at her. My team and I were sent here to study the planet. We didn't know anyone was left behind. When I saw the ships leave, I thought everyone was gone. But then, I found you. Lina bit her lip, unsure of what to say. Part of her wanted to trust him, but another part of her still screamed to run. She couldn't tell which feeling was stronger. Look, Marcus said, standing up slowly. I'm not asking you to trust me right now. I just don't want you to be out here alone. It's not safe. Lina stared at him, her heart still racing. She didn't know if she could believe his words, but one thing was clear. She couldn't survive alone. Not on this planet. Not with the dangers that might come. Kindness of the humans. Lina walked behind Marcus, her heart still pounding, unsure if she was making the right choice. Every step she took felt heavy with fear, but she knew staying alone in the forest was far worse. Marcus had not shown any signs of aggression so far, but her mind kept reminding her of the old stories about humans. Could he really be trusted? The forest around them grew quieter as they moved further away from Lina's hiding place. Marcus led the way, his pace slow and steady, as if he was being careful not to startle her. Every few steps, he would glance back, offering her a reassuring smile. You don't need to be scared of me, Marcus said, his voice calm. I know you've probably heard terrible things about humans, but we're not all the same. Lina didn't respond. She kept her distance, staying a few steps behind him. Her eyes constantly scanned the area, watching for any danger. Marcus noticed her hesitation, but didn't push her to talk. He simply kept walking, leading her through the thick trees. Soon, they reached a clearing. In the middle of the open space was the human ship, its metal surface shining under the sunlight. Lina hesitated at the edge of the clearing. The ship seemed much bigger up close, and her fear spiked again. The other humans were probably inside. What if they weren't as kind as Marcus? Marcus must have noticed her hesitation. He stopped and turned to face her. I promise, you're safe with us. My team isn't like the humans you've heard about. We're just here to explore the planet and survive, just like you. Lina took a deep breath, her mind battling between trust and fear. But something about Marcus's calm nature made her want to believe him. She gave a small nod and followed him toward the ship. When they reached the entrance, the ship's door opened with a soft hiss. Lina tensed, expecting the other humans to come out with weapons. But instead, a woman stepped out, her expression calm and welcoming. She had long, dark hair tied back and wore a similar uniform to Marcus. Hey, you found someone, the woman said, smiling warmly at Lina. I'm Sarah. Don't worry, we're not here to hurt you. Lina gave a nervous nod, unsure of how to respond. She had never expected humans to be so kind. Sarah's gentle tone and Marcus's calm demeanor were nothing like the stories she had grown up hearing. Marcus gestured for Lina to follow him inside the ship. She hesitated again, but eventually stepped inside. The ship's interior was surprisingly clean and quiet, with soft lights glowing along the walls. It felt safer than the wild, unpredictable forest outside. As they walked through the narrow hallway, Marcus spoke again. We don't have much, but you can stay here with us for now. We got food, water, and a safe place to sleep. You won't have to worry about anything." Lina didn't know how to feel. It all seemed too good to be true. Why were these humans being so kind? What did they want in return? Her mind raced with questions, but she kept quiet, unsure if she could trust them fully. They reached a small room with a table and chairs. Marcus motioned for her to sit, and Sarah brought over a tray with some food and water. The smell of the food made Lina's stomach growl. She hadn't eaten properly in days, too afraid to leave her hiding spot in the forest. "You must be hungry," Sarah said, setting the tray in front of Lina. "Go ahead, eat, it's safe." Lina hesitated for a moment before reaching for the food. She took a small bite, her body instantly relaxing as the warm meal filled her stomach. It was the first time in a long while that she felt any sense of comfort. As she ate, Marcus and Sarah sat across from her, giving her space. They didn't bombard her with questions or demands. They simply watched her with kind eyes, waiting patiently. After a few moments of silence, Lina finally spoke, her voice soft. "Why are you helping me?" Marcus exchanged a quick glance with Sarah before answering. "Because it's the right thing to do. We're not here to hurt anyone. We know this planet is dangerous, and we don't want to leave anyone behind, especially someone as vulnerable as you." Lina looked down at her hands, still unsure. "But humans are supposed to be dangerous." Sarah leaned forward slightly, her expression serious but kind. "Some humans are, yes, but not all of us. We're not here to harm you, Lina. We just want to survive, like everyone else." Lina thought about their words. Could it really be true? Could some humans be different from the ones in the stories? It was hard to let go of her fear, but for the first time, she felt a glimmer of hope. "You don't have to trust us right away," Marcus said, his voice gentle. "But we're here to help. We'll keep you safe." Lina finished the last of her meal, feeling a little more at ease. Maybe, just maybe, she could start to believe them. The humans hadn't shown any signs of cruelty, and their kindness seemed genuine. For the first time since being left behind, Lina felt a tiny spark of hope. Lina's people returned. Days had passed since Lina had been taken in by the humans. Each day, she grew a little more comfortable around Marcus and Sarah. Though the stories about humans still haunted her mind, their kindness was something she couldn't deny. They gave her food, shelter, and never once treated her like an enemy. Lina began helping around the ship, learning their ways, and even talking to the other crew members. Slowly, she started to believe that maybe, just maybe, these humans weren't like the dangerous monsters her people had warned her about. One morning, while Marcus and Lina were outside near the ship collecting samples from the forest, the calm air was suddenly disturbed by a loud noise. It was a sound that Lina recognized immediately, a deep rumble that vibrated through the ground. Her heart dropped. She looked up at the sky, and there they were. Ships, like the ones that had left her behind, now descending from the clouds. Her people had returned. Lina froze, staring in shock as the large alien ships descended onto the planet. Her mind raced with emotions, relief, fear, and confusion all mixed together. For so long, she had believed she was abandoned, left to die. And now, they were back. But why? Marcus noticed the change in Lina's expression and followed her gaze to the sky. His face tightened, sensing the tension. "Your people?" he asked, his voice steady but cautious. Lina nodded slowly. "Yes, they've come back." Marcus looked back at the descending ships, then at Lina. "What are they like? Will they be friendly?" Lina's stomach churned with uncertainty. She didn't know what to expect. Her people had left her behind without any explanation. Would they be happy to see her? Or would they see her as weak for relying on humans? I don't know," Lina whispered, her voice trembling. The ships landed in the distance with a heavy thud, sending dust flying into the air. Lina's heart raced. She felt torn. On one hand, her people had returned, and she had longed to see them again. But on the other hand, she had grown attached to the humans. especially Marcus. They had been her saviors when no one else cared. Marcus placed a hand on her shoulder, snapping her out of her thoughts. "You don't have to go if you don't want to. We'll protect you, no matter what." His words sent a wave of warmth through her, but it was also mixed with confusion. Could she really leave the humans behind? Would her people even accept her after everything? Just as Lina was about to speak, a group of her people emerged from the forest, walking toward them with purposeful steps. They were tall, slender, with shimmering blue skin, their eyes glowing faintly in the daylight. Lina recognized the leader instantly. It was General Erin, one of the highest-ranking officers of her people. Her heart skipped a beat. General Erin was not known for his kindness. He was strict, calculating, and always focused on the mission. If he was here, it meant something serious had brought them back. "Lina," General Erin's voice boomed as he approached, his sharp eyes narrowing on her. "We thought you were lost." Lina stepped forward, her throat dry. I was left behind when the others evacuated." The general's eyes scanned her, then flicked toward Marcus, who stood calmly at her side. "And yet, you've been with the humans." Lina swallowed hard, unsure of how to explain. They saved me. I would have died without them." General Erin's eyes narrowed even further. "The humans are dangerous. You know that. They are carnivores, predators, and yet you trust them." Lina felt her heart pounding. The old stories echoed in her mind, but she couldn't ignore what she had seen with her own eyes. Marcus and the others had done nothing but help her. They hadn't shown any sign of the cruelty her people believe humans were capable of. "They aren't what we were told," Lina said, her voice stronger now. "They've been kind to me. They didn't harm me. They gave me food, shelter, and protection." General Erin's face twisted into a frown. "You've been deceived. The humans are not our allies. They are dangerous, and they will betray you the first chance they get." Lina shook her head. "No, you're wrong. Marcus and his team, they aren't like that." The tension between them was thick, and Lina could feel the weight of her people's disapproval, but she couldn't deny what she had experienced. The humans had shown her more kindness than she ever expected. General Erin took a step closer, his voice lowering. "We came back for you, Lina. But if you choose to stay with them, you will be seen as a traitor." Lina's heart dropped. A traitor. The word hit her like a punch to the chest. She looked at Marcus, who stood silently beside her, waiting for her decision. The humans had given her hope, but now her own people were asking her to choose loyalty to her race or loyalty to those who had saved her life. Lina's voice faltered as she looked between General Erin and Marcus. This was the hardest decision she had ever faced. General Erin's eyes were cold and demanding, but Marcus's gaze was steady, patient. He wasn't forcing her to choose. He was simply offering her a choice. Standing up for the humans, Lina felt the weight of her decision press down on her like never before. Her people were here, demanding her loyalty. And yet, the humans, Marcus, Sarah, and the others, had shown her nothing but kindness. The memories of the past few days flooded her mind. Marcus saving her, Sarah offering her food, the quiet companionship they had shared. And now, her own people were calling the humans dangerous. She took a deep breath and stepped forward, her eyes meeting General Erin's cold stare. She could feel her heart beating fast, but she forced herself to speak. "The humans saved me when no one else did. You left me behind." There was a murmur among the other aliens standing behind General Erin, their faces showing surprise at Lina's bold words. General Erin's sharp eyes narrowed, his expression darkening. "We didn't abandon you, Lina. We had to leave quickly to save the rest of our people. It was a military decision." Lina's fists tightened, but I was still left alone. If the humans hadn't found me, I would be dead. General Erin took a step closer, his voice low and filled with warning. "Humans are dangerous. They are carnivores, predators. They are not to be trusted. You have been deceived by their false kindness. Lena shook her head firmly, her voice steady. No, you're wrong. These humans aren't like that. They've helped me. They haven't hurt me or betrayed me. They offered me food and shelter when I had nothing. Marcus stood silently a few steps behind Lina, listening to every word. He knew this was Lina's moment, her choice, and he didn't want to interfere. But his heart swelled with pride hearing her stand up for them. General Erin looked furious now, his eyes blazing with frustration. You are a fool, Lina. The humans are manipulating you. They will use you and discard you when it suits them. You have no idea what they are capable of. Lina's hands were trembling, but she didn't back down. She knew what was true. She had lived with the humans, experienced their kindness firsthand. They weren't perfect, but they were not the monsters her people had always believed them to be. I know what they're capable of, Lina said, her voice rising slightly. They're capable of compassion, of saving lives. They've shown me more kindness than I ever expected, more than anyone else has in a long time. The other aliens began to exchange uneasy glances, murmuring amongst themselves. It was clear that Lina's words were having an effect. They had never heard someone speak in defense of humans before, especially not one of their own. General Erin wasn't backing down. He stepped even closer to Lina, towering over her, his voice sharp and cold. If you stand with the humans, you will be exiled from our people. You will no longer be one of us. Lina felt a cold shiver run down her spine at the word exiled. She had always feared being cast out, being cut off from her people forever. But as she looked at Marcus, then back at General Erin, she realized something important. She had already found a new family. The humans had accepted her without question, without demanding loyalty in return. They had shown her what true compassion looked like. And now, as she stood between the humans and her own people, she knew she couldn't turn her back on those who had saved her. If being one of us means abandoning those who showed me kindness, then I don't want to be part of your people, Lina said firmly, her voice stronger than it had ever been. I choose to stand with the humans. There was a collective gasp from the aliens. General Erin's face twisted into an expression of disbelief and anger. You dare defy your own people for them. He spat, gesturing toward Marcus and the human ship behind him. Yes, I do, Lina replied, standing her ground. Because they've proven to me that they're not the monsters we were told they are. Maybe some humans are dangerous, but not these ones. They're different, and I won't let you harm them. Marcus finally stepped forward, placing a hand gently on Lina's shoulder. You don't have to do this, Lina, he said softly, though there was pride in his voice. You don't have to choose sides. But Lina shook her head, her decision made. I already have. General Erin's eyes burned with fury. He stared at Lina for a long, tense moment, as if trying to decide what to do next. Then, with a sharp motion, he turned to the other aliens behind him. We're leaving, he barked. The other aliens hesitated for a moment, casting uncertain glances at Lina before following General Erin back toward the ships. As they disappeared into the forest, the sound of their footsteps fading, Lina let out a breath she didn't realize she had been holding. Marcus squeezed her shoulder gently. Are you okay? Lina nodded, though her emotions were a tangled mess inside her. She had just defied her own people, chosen a new path. There was no turning back now. I'm fine, she said, her voice quiet but steady. I'm with you. Marcus smiled at her, his eyes filled with respect. We'll take care of you, Lina. You're one of us now. As the alien ships lifted off in the distance, Lina felt a strange sense of peace. She had made her choice, and while the future was uncertain, she knew one thing for sure. She wasn't alone anymore. She had found a new family with the humans, and she would stand by them, no matter what came next. Peace between two worlds. The days that followed Lina's bold stand were filled with uncertainty. The humans and the alien tribe were on different sides, and there was a lot of tension in the air. But Lina was determined to bridge the gap between her people and the humans she had come to trust. She knew that peace was possible if both sides were willing to listen. One morning, Lina stood outside the human camp, watching the sun rise over the trees. The colors painted the sky in beautiful shades of orange and pink. It was a new day, and she felt hopeful. Marcus approached her, his expression warm and encouraging. "Ready for another day of trying to bring everyone together?" he asked, a hint of a smile on his face. Lina nodded. "I think it's time we meet with the leaders of my people again. We need to talk about peace." Marcus agreed, and together they prepared for the meeting. Lina felt a mix of nervousness and excitement. She was representing not just herself, but also the humans who had shown her kindness. It was important to her that both sides understood each other. Later that day, Lina and Marcus approached the clearing where the aliens had set up their camp. General Erin was waiting for them, along with other leaders from the alien tribe. Lina noticed the tension in the air as they arrived, but she held her head high, determined to stay calm. "Thank you for coming," Lina said, looking directly at General Erin. "I know things are complicated, but we need to talk." General Erin crossed his arms, his expression stern. "You've made your choice, Lina. But what do you want from us? You think we can just forget what happened?" Lina took a deep breath. "I don't expect you to forget, but I believe we can find a way to coexist. The humans are not what you think. They can help us." A murmur of disbelief rippled through the crowd. Lina glanced back at Marcus, who stood a few steps behind her, ready to support her. "What do you mean, helpless?" one of the other leaders, a tall alien with bright blue skin, asked. "They are carnivores. They hunt." Lina shook her head. "They don't hunt us. They saved me when I was alone and afraid. They gave me food and shelter. They have shown me kindness. If we want peace, we need to open our hearts and minds." Marcus stepped forward, sensing the moment was right. "We can share knowledge and resources," he said, his voice steady. "We can learn from each other. Humans and aliens have strengths that can complement one another. We can create a better future together." The alien leaders exchanged glances, clearly conflicted. Lina felt her heart race. This was her chance to make a difference. She had to convince them. "Think about it," Lina continued. "We are stronger together. The galaxy is vast and dangerous. If we don't stand united, we risk facing threats alone. The humans can offer technology and skills that we don't have, and in return, we can teach them about our culture and ways." General Erin's face softened slightly, but he remained cautious. "It is not easy to change old beliefs. Many of my people fear humans." Lina nodded, understanding the fear. "I felt fear too, but I learned that not all humans are the same. Just as not all aliens are the same. We cannot judge an entire group based on a few bad experiences." After a long silence, General Erin finally spoke. "You are brave, Lina. I see the strength in your words. But what if they turn on us? What if they betray our trust?" "We can take it slow," Marcus suggested. "Start with small exchanges. Trust is built over time. We can create a safe environment for both sides to learn from each other. Let us show you that humans can be allies, not enemies." Lina watched as the alien leaders considered Marcus's words. It was a crucial moment. She could see the wheels turning in General Erin's mind. Finally, he nodded, albeit reluctantly. "Very well," General Erin said, his voice heavy with thought. "We will allow a meeting between some of our leaders and your people, but it must be done with caution. If you betray our trust, there will be consequences." Lina felt a rush of relief wash over her. "Thank you," she said, her heart swelling with hope. "This is just the beginning." As the meeting wrapped up, Lina couldn't help but smile. She knew that change wouldn't happen overnight, but this was a significant step forward. With Marcus and the other humans by her side, she felt empowered. Days turned into weeks as they organized joint gatherings and shared knowledge. Humans and aliens learned from each other, breaking down barriers that had separated them for so long. Lina was amazed at how quickly understanding blossomed where fear once reigned. One evening, Lina stood outside with Marcus, watching the stars twinkle above. "Do you think we really did it?" she asked, a smile playing on her lips. Marcus chuckled softly. "I think we've taken the first step toward peace. It won't always be easy, but it's worth it." Lina nodded, feeling the warmth of hope in her heart. They had created a bridge between two worlds, one built on trust and kindness. And together, they would face whatever challenges lay ahead.